Let's talk about a very popular option nowadays when people enter retirement or disability benefits or survivor benefits or spouse benefits or whatever the case may be, moving overseas. And we just did a poll. So we've got some people answering here that living outside the United States, there are about 6% of you as of right now that actually live outside of the United States. And 30% are thinking about it, and the other 64% say, no, I want to stay in the United States. So, okay, so we got about 36% of the people out there that this information is very, very important for. And the other 64%, stick around after I finish talking about living overseas. If you've got any questions on all things Social Security, retirement, disability, survivor benefits, Medicare. So, for those thinking about it, the question, I'm sure, is, can you? And the answer is yes, you can live overseas and collect Social Security benefits. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Social Security benefits. I'm not gonna talk about SSI. SSI is Supplemental Security Income. That's the welfare-based program that Social Security administers, and that's you can't really live. You can go overseas for a small amount of time, about a month or so, but I'm not going to talk about SSI. I'm going to talk about straight retirement benefits, survivor benefits, SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, spouse benefits, and those type of benefits. But I'm not going to talk about SSI. That's a whole different ball of wax there. All right. So, can you, if you're receiving any of those benefits? Yes, you absolutely can. Regular viewers to my channel know there are two places you can't, and I can hear them all say North Korea and Cuba. So, Social Security cannot send your money if you're enjoying the beaches of North Korea or Cuba, or whichever one has the nice beaches. But any other place, particularly if you're a U.S. citizen, and there's different categories. So if you're a U.S. citizen, you can live anywhere in the world except for, North Korea. And, even in those countries, you can technically live in those countries. You just can't get your Social Security benefits. And then if you're a U.S. citizen, if your benefits essentially be on hold. And then when you go to a country that Social Security can send your benefits to, then they'll just reimburse you all those months you didn't get it. So anyway, but if you're a U.S. citizen, you can pretty much live anywhere in the world with no issues whatsoever. Well, I would say no issues, but we'll talk about what kind of issues you're looking at here. All right. So Social Security does a nice little pamphlet there, your payments while outside the United States. So definitely download that, take a look at it. It gets into quite a lot of detail because there are exceptions, the exceptions, the exceptions with all things Social Security. Um, and yeah, there's what's called totalization agreements. Social Security has agreements with various countries to where Social Security says, okay, hey, country X, if we'll give your citizens these type of benefits if you promise to give our citizens these type of benefits. So they're kind of international agreements that the Social Security Administration has with other Social Security administrations throughout the world. And the best way to check if whatever country you're intending to go to, contact that particular embassy, the consulate in that particular country. Usually, if you're a U.S. citizen, it's not an issue. If you're not a U.S. citizen, there is a great little payments abroad screening tool. So if you're a green card holder, you haven't been naturalized yet, then you just go in here, and it's a very, very easy little payments abroad screening tool, and you just put are you going to move outside the United States? Yes, I'm going to move outside. Are you a U.S. citizen? And then do you currently receive benefits? Yes, I receive benefits, and you can put pretty much any country in there. Let's put Belgium in there. And it says, yep, you're a U.S. citizen, so you're good. Enjoy your life. If you're not a U.S. citizen, then it gets into a little bit more detail. And each country is a little bit different. People ask me all the time and says, well, I live in this particular country. Can I get it? Can my, spouse get it who's not a U.S. citizen? And it really depends on the large totalization agreement that the United States has with your particular country. And the best way to determine that is to contact the federal benefits unit or the consulate in that particular country to get all the details before you go over there. But for most places, again, if you're a U.S. citizen, it's not an issue. You can receive benefits. So if you're thinking about that, so you pick a country, as long as it's not those two countries, and you want to go ahead and retire overseas or continue to collect your Social Security disability benefits overseas, no problems whatsoever. If you are going to file a new claim, so if you're going to, go ahead and leave and go to a particular country and then want to file a claim overseas for retirement benefits, spouse benefits, yes, you can do that. However, I wouldn't recommend it because it takes 10 times longer, because you'll have to go to the local consulate or the local embassy, and they don't have Social Security staff there. There are a few what's called federal benefits units. Like in Asia, the only one is in Manila. So if you're in Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, Japan, China, Korea, you have to deal with the federal benefits unit in Manila, and there's only one person there that is actual a Social Security employee. So there's only about a dozen or so throughout the United States. So what it is, if you go to a consulate or an embassy, someone just kind of, who's not an expert in it, takes the claim for you and then sends it back to Baltimore to the Office of International Operations. And it takes forever. So what I recommend is before you leave the United States, go ahead and start your benefits if you're able to. To your local district office, file online, whatever the case may be. If you want to file online overseas, sometimes you're able to do it, but Social Security, their computer system in this regard is, pretty kind of secure, in the sense of sometimes I hear a lot of people, they can't get into SSA.gov overseas and they can't file a claim overseas from overseas. There's, VPN, sometimes you can get around that, but just to be on the safe side, I would definitely try to file your claim before you leave. And what do you use for your address? Social Security, when you file a claim, you always give two addresses. You give where you actually live, your residence, and then you also give your mailing address. So if you're going to be living overseas, you can give your overseas address, and then you can, give an address for, virtual post office or a relative's house or something like that, somewhere that will check your mail, because it's very, very, very important that you check your mail in case you get anything from Social Security. What do you do about actual money, direct deposit in a U.S. bank account? Easiest way to do it, no issues. If you want to use a foreign bank account, you definitely can, but I warn you that Social Security employees at the district offices and other places, they mess those up quite a bit. The SWIFT code and all this other kind of stuff, and sometimes they don't put it in right. So what I recommend is using a U.S. bank account first, and then if you want to switch to a foreign bank account, go ahead and do it, but don't close out your previous bank account before you confirm that the money goes into the new bank account. Okay, so I see that happen a lot of the time. They switch to a foreign bank account and they close out their other one, and then it gets messed up and they're out of check for 1 or 2 or 3 months. So just be on the safe side there. If in terms of transferring money, I'm sure there's a lot of people. There's what do we got here? I live out. There's 12% on that actually live out the United States. So let us know in the live Q&A, or if you're watching this on a recording later, put in the description what country you live in, what country you're thinking about moving to, and then maybe someone else living in that country can kind of give you some heads up in terms of the issues you'll have to deal with for Social Security, and also in terms of getting money over there and filing a claim and getting help. But what a lot of people do is they just get the U.S. bank account and then they transfer money. There's TransferWise, I think it's now called Wise, or you can just do call your bank and tell them to do a wire transfer from your bank to whatever, or get some type of bank that has an ATM in your particular country. Sometimes the fees are kind of expensive to pull out of an ATM, but anyway, so those are some options. What about taxes? Hey, if you need help with Medicare, Medicare Advantage, Medicare supplements, Part D plans, make sure you reach out to my partners at Chapter Medicare. I looked for a place that would help y'all out and Chapter Medicare knocked it out of the park. They've got excellent customer service. They look at every single plan in your area, and their help is always 100% free. Give them a call, and they'll see if they can help you out, and tell them Dr. Ed said hi. Death and taxes. Yes, as a U.S. citizen, you'll have to pay taxes on any income that an American citizen makes overseas. So again, there's limits. You'll have to talk to your tax person on that. I think it's 75,000 or something. As long as you're under that, you don't. But anyway, so if all you have is your Social Security benefits, there's you might not have to pay taxes anyway. Federally, might be a different issue for your state. But in terms of the payments abroad screening tool, go into my YouTube description and it has it in there on, if you can get payments abroad and whether you have to pay taxes. I've got the link to the IRS website in my YouTube description. Go in there and it'll tell you whether you actually have to pay taxes on it. So one of the other issues is Medicare. Big question I get all the time. Person is living overseas and they have some form of health insurance overseas, and they say, I don't want to pay for Medicare, the $185, because I'm never coming back. Okay. All right. If you know for sure 100% you are never coming back, you're never going to get sick or homesick, or the political situation in your particular country is going to go south, you're 100% certain you're never coming back, then why pay for the $185 for your Medicare, Part B? But if you do that and you do get sick or homesick or whatever the case may be, and you have to come back to the United States and you've canceled Part B, then you're going to have some issues because you won't be able to start Part B again until the general enrollment period, which is January, February, and March. So I've seen too many people, they get sick or something and they come back in July and they've canceled Part B. And they've got they have Part A for the hospital, but they don't have Part B for the actual doctor. So you can go into the hospital, but the doctor, you have to pay out of pocket for the actual doctor. So you can't get that until January, February, and March during the general enrollment period. And you're going to have to pay a penalty for the rest of your life, 10% for every 12 months you did not have Part B. And this is also for Part D, the prescription drug plan. You can't sign up for that until January, February, March as well, until you get Part B. And you're going to get a penalty, 1% for every month you didn't have Part D when you were supposed to. So you really, really need to make a good consideration of all of those factors. Again, if you're never going to come back, you're never going to get penalized. That's the thing. You only get penalized is when you sign up later. If you never intend to sign up for Medicare, then there's no penalty because you're not going to sign up. But so I would definitely think about that. Another thing is if you're living overseas, you will get this form. It's called the Proof of Life form, or some people call it I Ain't Dead form, because when you're in the United States, if you pass away, then the coroner's office and the funeral homes notify the particular state, and the state notifies the Social Security Administration. Social Security notifies the Department of Treasury, and they pull out that last check and stop payments. But if you're living overseas, then obviously Social Security doesn't have the agreement with all those countries overseas. So they send you a proof of life form every now and then, every once a year, or every 2 years, sometimes not. So yeah, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason when you get it. But anyway, if you don't fill it out and return it, they'll stop your benefits. So what they do is in May or June, they'll send out this, it's SSA 7162, and you have to fill it out and return it. And if you don't return it within 60 days, Social Security makes another attempt in September and October. They send it out. And if you don't return it then they'll cut off your benefits and you will have a very, very difficult time restarting those benefits. But there's a new trick a lot of people don't know about. So let's see, we got 14% live outside the United States, according to our poll right now, and 34% are thinking about it. So I wonder if you all knew about this. This is an emergency message that came out January 10th, and it's still applicable. and it says allowing Signer attestation on the 7161 and 7162. The 7161 is a representative payee. So if you are not taking care of your own benefits, if you're overseas and you're kind of in a nursing home or you're unable to take care of your own benefits, then someone else is taking care of your benefits for you, then the 7161 goes to them. If you are taking care of your own benefits, then that 7162, the proof of life form, comes to you. But there is a trick here. Social Security, for this cycle, as of right now, these two forms may be completed and signed by Social Security staff or Department of State staff within the federal benefits unit using attestation. And what that basically means is you can call the 800 number or call your local office back in your particular state or whatever, or call the federal benefits unit and say, hey, I got this form, I need to fill it out, but mail, I'm worried about mail and yada, yada, yada. And so let's just go ahead and do this over the phone through an attestation. And they can do it, and they'll read you during this interview, we will ask you questions that will be used to complete your foreign enforcement questionnaire. At the end of the info, you should be aware they'd be held legally responsible for giving us false information. You can tell I've said that about a million times this is typical attestation for Social Security. But you can do this over the phone now, but a lot of people don't know about it. So when you call the 800 number, your local office, you tell them, I will put this reference in the description of this particular video. So if you're watching this later and you call up the 800 number and you say, hey, I got this letter, but I don't want my benefits to stop, and mail in my country is not that great. So I want to go ahead and do this over the phone. And probably they're going to say, no, you can't do it over the phone. And then you say, well, you need to reference emergency message 25004. And then they'll reference that and they'll say, oh, okay, all right, let's go ahead and do it. And that way your benefits won't stop. So that is a insider tip that a lot of people don't know out there. All right, so let's and there's millions of variations and millions of different questions people have about moving overseas and all the rest of it. In terms of disability, yes, there are a lot of people that are receiving Social Security disability insurance that are living overseas, and it's not an issue until you get your CDR, continuing disability review. And when you get it, you just have to go through the procedures, and obviously they're not going to have you do see a consultative exam in the United States. They'll a lot of people are on disability live overseas, so it's if you're on disability or low benefits in terms of retirement benefits, it's very difficult to live in the United States. And I guess it's one way you can avoid all of the coming tariffs on all products is if you don't live in the United States, you go directly to that country and you live in that country. I guess there's no tariffs.